Could it be? Is it possible? Has it really been a year since the last installment? Why, yes. Yes, it has been. This is the return of RSPW Rewind. This is episode 37. I am the Solomonster. And for those of you who may have forgotten, or perhaps you're new here, this is where we look back at what the so-called smart marks were discussing and what the so-called smart marks were complaining about way back when, before Facebook was even a thing, back when people thought that a tweet was something a bird did, and that a TikTok was an annoying sound that a clock made. And contrary to what some will tell you, wrestling fans were in fact complaining about wrestling 25 years ago, long before social media was a thing. And I've got the receipts to prove it from an old news group called RSPW. But first, before we get into all that, I want you to take a look at this. Stop what you're doing. This is an emergency. There's something wrong with your phone. You don't have Raid Shadow Legends installed. Raid is a tactical turn-based multiplayer online battle game with an emphasis on hero collection. Combine your champions into a team to tackle challenges from real players, and with over 80 million downloads and counting, there's a lot of them. I love that you can take on real players in head-to-head battles, or you can battle awesome bosses. And even better, there are constant updates to the game, new champions, new content every single month. This Christmas, new players can get ready for the 12 days of Raid. Download Raid Shadow Legends from the links below, copy your player ID from in-game, and visit 12daysofraid.plarium.com. Enter your player ID and set out on a festive 12-day adventure from December 19th to January 10th. Each day, new players can play a new minigame for a chance to win some amazing in-game and real-life prizes, including holiday-themed Raid champions and Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Existing Raid players don't think we're leaving you out. Head to 12daysofraid.plarium.com to find a special holiday promo code that everyone can use for a small festive gift. And Raid's got something extra special happening. They've released a legendary champion based off MMA legend and WWE superstar Ronda Rousey, using her combat sports background to battle dragons and ice golems with nothing more than her bare fists. You can get Ronda for free right now, whether you're a new or a longtime player, just by logging into Raid. All you need to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and February 20th, and Ronda is yours. It's just that simple. And to celebrate Ronda's arrival in Raid, you can use the special promo code RAIDRONDA for a bunch of helpful stuff like a 3-day 100% XP boost, 500k silver, and 5 full energy refills. Perfect for leveling your Ronda up so she's at the top of her game. Just enter the promo code RAIDRONDA in-game and all these goodies can be yours. But there's more. New players can use my link or scan the QR code right here to get a free starter pack worth almost $30, a free champion Vergis, and this cool in-game loot. You'll find your rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Raid has created its own immersive universe, not unlike pro wrestling. They have their champions. Now in Raid, you've got yours. All right. Let's see how the Urban Dictionary defines RSPW, shall we, before we go any further. This is how the Urban Dictionary defines RSPW. It's an acronym for rec.sport.pro-wrestling, a Usenet group filled with insane, hostile trolls. Sounds pretty spot on to me. So after extensive research over the past couple of years, I have compiled a list of different threads that do still exist, although sadly many of them have been lost to time and I guess various internet black holes. But I have a lot of those old posts. I've already gone through many of them in past installments, and we have more here this time. Now, usually if you guys have seen these episodes before, you know the format, you know the drill. Generally speaking, I will bounce around from post to post, topic to topic, talk about different things from over the years. But we're going to do things a little bit different this time. I thought that in this episode, since it has been 25 years since Bill Goldberg made his WCW debut, I thought that it would be appropriate to keep the posts Goldberg related this time around. I'm sure that Bret Hart He is just waiting to kick his feet up. He can't wait to lay back and enjoy some Goldberg bashing. Although it's not all bad for Big Bill. It is not all bad for him, as you'll see as we get into this here. Now, Goldberg made his debut on WCW Monday Nitro back on September 22nd, 1997, with a win over Hugh Morris. What? Hugh Morris. And that was the beginning of what would become a streak of, allegedly, 173 straight matches, 173 straight wins, before suffering his first defeat at Starrcade back in 98. So, with all that out of the way, let us begin. And we are going to begin with a post from Cactus Bix on October 1st, 1997, titled, and this is a long title too. This is quite a title. I think he put the body of his message in the title, but the title is Bill Goldberg, Rookie of the Year. He has the talent to make it big in the US and especially Japan. Remember, these were people's first impressions of seeing Goldberg on television back in the day. So you got to remember, they're coming at it from this perspective. He is very intriguing to watch wrestle. He has the Austin bald head and goatee, an outfit similar to Mark Coleman of UFC, and a style that seems to be a hybrid of strong style, American, and all Japan style. He has the chance, with more seasoning, to become a breakout star by the end of 1998. I have suggestions on how to properly develop him into a great wrestler. So this should be very interesting. This is Cactus Bix's suggestions for Bill Goldberg. Number 1, send him to the New Japan Dojo. The WCW power plant would not be right. Have him wrestle Shinya Hashimoto, Kazuo Yamazaki, and any other strong style wrestlers to help him develop his style. Well, I think Bret would say his style is strong enough. Let's move on to point number 2. When he comes back, have him wrestle a series with Steven Regal, and at the end of the feud, have Goldberg and Regal declare their respect. I almost said love. Declare their respect for each other and beat the hell out of Bagwell and Norton. Goldberg will then feud with Scott Norton. Number 3, on the next tour of Japan, have an elimination 8-man tag with the following wrestlers. Boy, this guy's really giving this some thought. He's giving this some thought, some time. So he wants this 8-man elimination with Satoshi Kojima, Steven Regal, Bill Goldberg, and Shinya Hashimoto against Great Muta, Buff Bagwell, Scott Norton, and Masa Chono. Have Goldberg and Hashimoto be the survivors. They team on the next tour. All of this could strengthen him in Japan. Point number 4. Have him win the US belt from an NWO member at Starrcade 98. Wrestlers come out of the locker room to congratulate him. The same night, have Sting beat Hogan for the world belt, which Sting had won at Starrcade 97, but lost back to Hogan at Road Wild in 98. This hasn't happened yet, obviously. The WCW announcers proclaim it the greatest night in the history of our sport and shed tears of joy. Goldberg and Sting remain champs until I decide how long in my next post. So Cactus Bix, he'll be back to us with how long he wants to see Sting and Goldberg as champions for. It's amazing to think that by Starrcade 98, Goldberg was already the champion and lost his title to an NWO member, not the other way around. Liger Bomb, though, a little further down the post, Liger Bomb doesn't feel the same way as Cactus Bix. He says, I don't see how you can say that he's going to be a breakout star after seeing his match last Monday night. He's slow, he has no mobility whatsoever, and even screwed up his finisher. The only thing he's got going for him is his size. Bottom line, he needs more polishing. And Pogo 1008 says, 2 words regarding Rookie of the Year, Mr. Aguila. This guy is going to be the next Juventud, and he is not even 18 years old yet. Aguila, for those who don't know, made his WWE debut a month after this, and later on he was renamed S.A. Rios. And they put Lita with him when he debuted. She became a bigger name than he did. A few weeks later, on October 28th, 1997, we have KBD K-Beeve with a post titled, Bill Goldberg is bad. KBD K-Beeve? This may be Kevin Dunn's burner account. What's the man's middle name? KD? Kevin Dunn. And Beeve, I mean, well, we all know what that... I think that speaks for itself. Anyway, here's Mr. Beeve. I'm with whoever made the comparison to Shamrock. He does that same thing with his arms, and he screams like Ken. I remember that. Ken Shamrock, he used to psych himself up when he would hit the ring. He would be on the ring steps, right? He would punch himself in the face. He would go, ah, right? Just like that. Goldberg would come out. He would snort. He would spit. He would slap himself. Sometimes he would bash his head into a locker and bust himself open. Very intense. Viper, with a Y, because that was the cool thing to do back then, says, I've seen quite a few posts comparing Goldberg to Austin and Shamrock. Aside from the outfit, he has nothing in common with Austin. Just because he shaves his head and has a goatee does not make him Austin. He may share some moves with Shamrock, but is definitely bigger. Even in the 2 45-second spots he's done at Halloween Havoc and on the October 20th Nitro, he is just plain intense. I realized that Glacier got the same sort of undefeated push when he entered WCW, but Goldberg is far more exciting in the ring. Well, I would hope that Goldberg is more exciting than Glacier. Even though Rocky Maivia and Prince Iaukea suffered from early title reigns, I was really hoping he would take the title from Disco on Nitro. In the 6 or so matches that Goldberg has had, he has shown more intensity than anyone I have seen in a long, long time. Then we have a response from a man named Shu. Now I'm picturing a man coming to the ring to Sting's old music. Only instead of a man called Sting, he's a man called Shu. This is what he says. Yeah, he's intense for 45 seconds. Why don't you all wait until he has to have a real match before you decide if he is the future of wrestling? Give the man some time to prove himself, and then we will know if he's really that good. I haven't been impressed that much by him so far. He does that running tackle, punches, and a suplex into a power slam. Wow. I could be intense for that long. Brian AIC says, Goldberg has 3 moves. Football tackle, some sort of submission hold that's always done too close to the ropes, and the jackhammer. Add that with his constant no-selling, and I think he just plain sucks. Isaac Kenneth. I don't give a shit if his matches last 5 seconds or the next 10 years. This guy beats ass. I also don't care if he uses the same 2 moves over and over. I love to see a guy dominate like Goldberg has so far. I see enough matches that have 2 flabby wrestlers smacking each other for 20 minutes. Goldberg rules. So there you go. We have a huge Bill Goldberg fan here. Jeffrey Gish makes a bold prediction on October 30th, 1997. Personally, I want to see Goldberg against someone like the likes of Benoit or Flair, or anybody that is a name before I pass judgment. I can't honestly see WCW giving this guy a push over the bigger names around. I can envision him as the king of mid-carders, though. Bill Goldberg, ladies and gentlemen. The king of mid-carders. Who wants to tell? Who is this? Who wants to tell Jeffrey Gish? Can we find Jeffrey Gish? Can we let him know the bad news? And Elefino says, why is it this news group is full of people bashing Hogan, Sting, Flair, Nash, Hall, etc.? Granted, most of these bashers are WWF fans. And then when some new blood like Goldberg lands on the scene, he sucks. He only has 2 moves. Why is he getting such a push? What's it gonna take to please you people? Benoit and Malenko, he spells it Benoit. Benoit and Malenko can't fill a 2-hour time slot. Not to mention they can't sell interviews. No interviews equals no angle. No angles, go to your local high school and watch 1-count pinfall matches. We skip ahead to January 13th, 1998, and a post by Mr. B. I think that Bill Goldberg is growing more popular every week. I would love to see him in the tournament for the WCW Heavyweight Championship. I love the way he dominates his opponents every week. I would love to hear other people's opinions on this issue. Please email me or post your opinions. Yes, please email him. He's still waiting on people to send him that email. We go to DeGov. That's what it says here. G-A or a D-A-G-O-V. DeGov writes, did anyone else hear his possible nickname? Wild Bill Goldberg. Give me a break. What is he going to do? Come out in a cowboy outfit with 2 6-shooters? If Goldberg debuted for Vince McMahon in 1995, I think that he totally would have called him Wild Bill Goldberg. He would have had him come to the ring like the Smoking Guns, firing blanks. I could just picture it now. Wild Bill Goldberg on WWF Superstars. Goldberg Mark writes, you're going to get a belly full of crabbing, but personally, I agree with everything you said. Goldberg is great and just keeps getting better. A shocking comment from someone with the username Goldberg Mark. February 12, 1998. We have a post here by S. Coates 1974 asking who will be the first to beat Wild Bill Goldberg. What is this Wild Bill Goldberg nonsense? Was this legit? I thought maybe he was being funny, but was that really a nickname the WCW gave him? I have no memory of this. He says, who will get the first win over Goldberg? I say Booker T in a TV title match. So who should? Disco Inferno. He deserves it. So now we know what Glenn Gilberti was doing back in the day. He was trolling around on RSPW here. Rhino says the day that he loses, his shtick and career are over. Case in point, Mike Tyson. Tim Smith says it certainly won't be Disco. Disco just flat out sucks. It's good to see people were conscious of that fact even back then. Bill Goldberg would spear him so hard that Disco wouldn't know what hit him. In fact, I would love to see this match. I think it would be over within a minute. Go Bill. Ajax responds, I really have no clue. But wouldn't it be sweet if Raven and Goldberg went at it, and when Goldberg goes for his tackle, Raven hooks his head and gives him a DDT? Shit. With all of the momentum from Goldberg, it would be the biggest DDT in the history of the world. You know, the Raven-Goldberg match in 98, which was a few months after this post, is one of my favorite matches in Nitro history. Although we didn't see that spot. That would have been a cool spot. We didn't see that spot, but they did have a hell of a match. Manimal says they met once before back when Disco was TV champion, and indeed Goldberg speared the hell out of him and jackhammered him, but Mongo ran in for the DQ. Thankfully, that feud died quickly. And Disco kept the belt. I see Saturn or Booker T beating Goldberg first. Man, thank God these people weren't booking WCW back in the day. TJ A. Knight thinks that Ric Flair should be the man to stop Bill Goldberg. After a sustained attack on Goldberg's knee, Flair applies the figure 4. Goldberg no-sells and reverses. He attempts his slam, but his knee gives out. Flair reapplies the figure 4, and Goldberg is counted out in a controversial decision by Nick Patrick. Well, I know one person who does not like that idea, and that is Danny Petty. Says, TJ, you got it all wrong. It's obvious that you're new to wrestling. Goldberg's knee would not give out. He says, Flair's sagging breasts would actually blind himself while he is being held upside down in the jackhammer. Upside down in the jackhammer. As a result, Flair would be in a state of oblivion and try to do that flip over the turnbuckle and land on the apron thingy that he does. Then Goldberg would be confused because it's not according to the script, and as a result, run out of the building scared, thinking Flair has gone psychotic. That is how Goldberg should be counted out. That is the kind of classy discourse that you had on the internet wrestling community here back in 1998. I'm trying to visualize that, and I laugh every time. Next up, let's move on here. We have Skitty. with a post on February 13th, 1998, titled, "Bill Goldberg is not all the hype." One problem I see with Goldberg is his lack of stamina. The man is huge, powerful, and has a good mat game with some agility, but he lacks the conditioning to make it far in this sport. That is why you see the quick squashes and no 15-minute matches with this monster. If he is to get a title, the TV title would fit best. The 10-minute time limit would suit him well. Get his endurance up, then talk to me later. You know, that isn't terrible logic, actually. They used to do those 10-minute time limit matches in WCW for the television title. That would not have been a bad idea for Goldberg. Fat Tuna responds, "How do you know what kind of stamina he has? Do you work out with him? The fact is, none of his matches have gone long enough for us to know. You're assuming that WCW is making his matches short because he can't work longer. Let's reserve judgment until we know for sure. By the way, I hate Goldberg." Mark Mizark says, "Who knows about stamina, but he was blown up after 2 minutes with Regal. 2 to 3 minutes seems to be his limit before he is noticeably out of breath." From there, we go to March 10th, 1998. We have Tim with a post titled, "The Case for Bill Goldberg." Bill Goldberg has no moves. Bill Goldberg no sells. Geez, you people, who declared you the masters of the obvious? Goldberg gets a huge pop. He's as over as anybody in WCW. Why? Because he's trying. He's learning new moves. He's adding to his arsenal. He's learning to sell other people's moves, although he really needs to practice that some more. His gimmick is that he is huge, he is nuts, and he is not going to lose. The WCW, that's what he said. The WCW wants to make sure he can hold his own before they put him in against some real talent. I would love to see Goldberg against Raven's Flock, members of the NWO, Booker T. It will happen, just be patient. This guy is learning new stuff. Can the same be said for almost anybody else in WCW? That is the case for Bill Goldberg. Mark Mizark was back again. He couldn't help himself. He says, "There is more to working than moves and selling. He can barely do the other stuff. You think psychology is going to be easier? By the way, getting a huge pop and being over are two different things. When he draws, he's over. Until then, he gets a big pop, but he is not over. As for that learning new stuff, at what point is he actually going to do any of this stuff that he is learning with any degree of quality? He has yet to show that he can even do the simplest of basics to any degree of proficiency. People learn how to do things all the time, but still suck at them. He can't even sell a punch. Goldberg is just another big guy who is getting a big push because he gets a big pop. Lucky for him, that's all you need in this business to make serious money. When the case for Bill Goldberg is closed, he is more likely to be compared to the stiffs of the past 2 decades than to any legitimately talented people." Pete Koff leaps into the conversation to Tim's defense, the original poster. Says, "Yeah, but Goldberg can't execute a Hurricane Rana or a plancha. So all of the RSPW knuckleheads think he sucks. The guy does what he can do very well. The spear looks awesome 90% of the times, and so do his other moves. Goldberg is a future world champion, mark my words." So Pete was spot on right there. Stone Cold chimes in. Says, "Goldberg has more talent in his little finger than any of the old guys. He looks good doing what he's doing. Hell, he grew up just like I did, watching the likes of Hogan and Flair. He probably played wrestling at his grandma's house and practiced Jake the Snake's DDT on his cousins. Actually, Goldberg did not watch wrestling as a kid, so I don't know where he's getting that from. Goldberg's matches are fast-paced and at least a little bit realistic. With a jobber, he doesn't have to act like he's being hurt like he would if the powers that be put him in with a big star. I'm going to be really depressed the day that he loses. It'll be to some big-name star about half his size who will win because of his tremendous in-ring ability. Give me a break." Superfan Sam says, "He's just another Ahmed Johnson, Ultimate Warrior, or Mabel. He'll end up hurting too many people, including himself, if WCW pushes him too fast. If he practices one match for 3 months, i.e. Warrior, before his WrestleMania win over Hogan, He could probably have a good match, but he will be another flash in the pan and injure himself right out of wrestling. Well, he injured somebody right out of wrestling. It wasn't himself. And we'll end this post here with Joe Dick, who says, they should not have pushed Goldberg so fast. Now all I want to see is him crushed by someone like Benoit or Bret Hart. Well, I hate to break the news to you, Joe Dick, but sometimes you got to be careful. Sometimes you do get what you wish for, and it doesn't turn out the way that you want. So we'll skip to a post by Ice Cold. That's how I like my drinks. On May 14th, 1998. So by now, Goldberg, at this point, Goldberg has already won the United States Championship from Raven. These people are getting more vocal, though, in their disdain for Goldberg. It seems like here in RSPW, the more that he's pushed, the bigger he gets, the more hate that there is for him. What does that sound like? Sound familiar? Here's a post titled, Even WCW Knows Goldberg Sucks. He says, this is from WCW's website. In this week's Nitro report, Bill Goldberg defeats Len Denton, U.S. title match. You want a recipe for a Goldberg match? Get Goldberg and a helpless victim of your choice. Start with an ineffective offensive flurry from said victim. Mix in a devastating attack from the U.S. champ. Spear, jackhammer, pin, and serve. So that was a description from the WCW website. And then this person says, I guess they know he's a formulaic loser also, huh? Anton J. Selecker says, to me, it seems like Goldberg is very similar to Ahmed Johnson when he entered the WWF. He got a huge push early, but because he lacked in-ring and out-of-ring skills like mic work, he ended up being a mid-carder. Speaking of Ahmed, when he is healthy, I wouldn't mind seeing a feud between he and Billy. Oh, good lord. My God. There aren't enough doctors in the world to deal with the injuries coming out of that match. We have the Cardiff Giant. Formulaic loser? No. Goldmine, yes. But you don't like him because you're a pure wrestling fan, right? None of this entertainment stuff for you, oh no. Sounds like so many Twitter threads and YouTube debates that I see today. We have Shaitan responding, no, actually, I'm not a pure wrestling fan. I think pure wrestlers with no personality like Benoit and Malenko suck. I think good wrestlers who ooze personality like Jericho are great. Goldberg does not entertain me. His matches are as generic as Warrior in the mid-80s or Hogan mid-80s matches. Endless squash matches against jobbers are not entertaining. And finally here, Jonathan Snowden says, actually, in 9 months, Goldberg has developed the kind of 90s style offense that Hogan and Warrior could only dream about. When his selling catches up with his advanced offense, people will have to come up with a new reason to hate him. 2 days later, we got a post here from Andrew Ormberg titled simply, Goldberg sucks. Right to the point. Andrew is not wasting any time here. Goldberg sucks on May 16th, 1998. I am curious on why people seem to love Bill Goldberg. One reason is that WCW is throwing their entire support behind him. A mistake they made when they employed Stone Cold Steve Austin years ago. Wait, what? Wait a minute. Let me reread this again. One reason is that WCW is throwing their entire support behind him, a mistake they made when they employed Steve Austin years ago. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware of the fact that WCW and Eric Bischoff put their full muscle behind Steve Austin. I guess Austin just decided to leave because he felt like it. I guess it was too much pressure. That's a new one. Austin would tell you that it's the opposite that happened, but apparently here, who is this? Andrew has a different view of the situation. He says an 80-0 record, give me a break. U.S. champion, why? The man cannot wrestle. Did you see him fight the Flock's Hammer last Saturday? The whole fight lasted 2 minutes. This Steve Austin wannabe should learn how to wrestle before he steps into the ring again. WCW wanted fans to attend Saturday night, so they said Goldberg would be there. Boy, did they get shortchanged. Why haven't all you fans seen through this idiotic attempt to steal Austin's thunder? I will admit Goldberg does have a better finishing move than that pathetic stunner. Goldberg is big and has a mad yell, but you need more than that to be a WCW superstar. Goldberg should either take a year training at the power plant or go play some beach bodybuilder on Baywatch. How's that for alliteration? I'm still puzzled by the Steve Austin comment. I have no idea what he's talking about. The Cardiff Giant is back in this thread and says, yeah, you said it, man. They should send the guy who gets the biggest pops and sells buttloads of merchandise back to the power plant for a year and take him off television until he can accomplish something. Seeing as how this is entertainment, any other choice of action by WCW would be foolish. CCC Aries defends Wild Bill and says, perhaps you should open your eyes the next time you watch WCW. Goldberg may resemble Stone Cold, but his moves are distinctive, and nobody else does the jackhammer. I personally think Goldberg is a hell of a wrestler. Wilfredo Sanchez says, with all due respect, I'm getting tired of this suck stuff. A promotion sucks, a wrestler sucks. They just suck, and that's it? I just ask, is this an intelligent and thoughtful analysis worthy of a news group like RSPW? I don't think so. I can see Wilfredo is new to RSPW, that he would even have to answer or ask or answer that question. Clearly he's new here. Mark Mod decided to respond to Wilfredo and offer what I thought was actually a very insightful response. So here's Mark Mod. This is a response worthy of RSPW. He says, I do not believe so either, and while I would never stoop to utilizing such a crass term as sucks, I will offer that thoughtful and intelligent analysis of why Goldberg quote-unquote sucks. As of today, I have counted a cumulative total of 37 maneuvers in the arsenal of Bill Goldberg, only 12% of which are utilized every match, and only 27% of which are utilized more than twice in a 1-month span. In fact, 6% of his arsenal has only been implemented once. In addition, the average work rate for all of his previous encounters has only been 6.734 out of 10. I realize that this calculation can be skewed. After all, on some occasions he was facing a small man, thus disqualifying him from being graded on the T-curve. and on others, he had faced a larger combatant, thus qualifying him for the curve grade. However, were it not for that curve, his work rate would possibly be in the 3.64 to 5.345 range. Combine those two facts with further observation that he has blown the spear on 34 occasions, and it is indeed a fair conclusion that Goldberg sucks. I love it. Mark Mod coming with the stats, everybody. I love it. On June 7th, 1998, 1 month before Bill Goldberg beat Hollywood Hogan for the world title in the Georgia Dome, we had a post by DX NWO 21 titled Bill Goldberg to Lose. It says Bill Goldberg will lose his 100th match to none other than the icon, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. It will happen on Monday Nitro in a few weeks. Carl Nelson says, expect an NWO run-in and Goldberg to win by DQ. He will maintain his streak. After all, a win is a win, whether it's DQ or otherwise. And that is all the NWO ever does during main events anyway, run-ins and completely screw up the match. Don Carpenter says, the Hogan-Goldberg match is going to be a dark match. I would not be surprised if Hogan did a clean job just so Goldberg quote-unquote owes him something, like a clean pin on TV. Now, he is not wrong. Originally, the Goldberg-Hogan match in Atlanta was supposed to be a dark match. It was not supposed to air on TV. That got changed. And to show you how last minute it got changed, that got changed 4 days before the show. 4 days before the show, the decision was made to put this match on television. Why did they do that? Because the week before, Monday Night Raw kicked Nitro's ass in the ratings. They got trounced. And that was the post-King of the Ring episode where Stone Cold won the belt back from Kane. That did a huge number. And WCW got its ass kicked. And so Eric Bischoff, who at the time was a slave to the television ratings, was constantly, hot-shotting and, so what can we do this week to make up for what happened last week? And so the idea was, we'll take Bill Goldberg and Hollywood Hogan, which was the biggest possible match they could do at that point, and we'll put that match on television. So it's crazy to think about, had Nitro won the ratings war that previous week, we may never have gotten Goldberg and Hogan on Nitro, and maybe we wouldn't have gotten Goldberg and Hogan for months. I mean, who knows? That ended up being the biggest match in WCW history. Though a lot of people still think to this day that it was foolish of them to put it on TV and not put it on pay-per-view. It was very weird that you had Goldberg beating Hogan on Nitro for the championship in front of 40,000 people. And then, I think a week or two later was their pay-per-view Bash at the Beach, and Goldberg wasn't even in the main event. He was on the undercard defending against Kurt Hennig. So, didn't really feel like much of a champ coming out of his big win. David G says, I've been reading that Hogan will job to Goldberg at a Nitro Dark match, then a pay-per-view will center around Goldberg's 100th match. It will be against Hogan for the title, and this time Goldberg will job to Hogan, but keep his US belt, allowing Hogan to be the first to beat Goldberg and stroking Hogan's out-of-control ego. And D. Chant says, guys, think! Says, we're talking about Hulk Hogan here, the man with the NWO painted WCW World title. The man who chooses when and to whom he jobs. The man who removed DDP from the main event at Bash at the Beach so he could fit his friend Randy Savage into the picture. The man who took Disco's finisher away from him so that another of his friends, Ed Leslie, can use it. The man who has made his career by inserting himself into the picture after the fact, such as WCW's resurgence, the NWO angle, and then claim credit for any and all successes. A man who is constantly setting himself up as the icon of professional wrestling, a walking, talking, breathing legend of the business. How better to further his claim to wrestling goddom than by being the man to hand Goldberg his first loss? And then it was D-Day. It was July 6th, 1998, the day of the Goldberg-Hogan match on Nitro. And we had a post here by the Task Mistress, Big Sexy, the Net Bastard Killer. That's a mouthful. Titled, Goldberg versus Hogan, Who Should Win? And the Task Mistress here says, my view is, and I've stated this in the press. In the press? She stated this in the press. She must be a big deal. I've never heard of this person before. I've stated this in the press, that Goldberg ought to be booked to win the world title. The last time they did booking like that was when they booked the Giant to win the world title and have him squash opponents every week. And it was the last time the heavyweight title scene in WCW was even remotely interesting. Of course, you remember who it was that did the job to the Giant? Ric Flair. That tells you right there the human worth between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. Well, I would say these days the human worth between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan is about on the same level. People want to see the world title defended. If Hogan can't at least defend the thing at pay-per-views like he used to, then Eric Bischoff shouldn't put it on him. Says it is destroying their Fed, and if the rumor is true that TNT will no longer give the live feed of Nitro but delay it until 8 p.m. on the West Coast, then Nitro will not be very watched versus Raw. The only reason at this point I even bother watching Nitro is that nothing else is on. I would much rather see Goldberg come out and squash everybody like a bug than see Hogan defend his title with a 15-minute diatribe every week. We then have Michael David Durr. Michael David Durr here with a post on RSPW. Goldberg doesn't deserve to be a wrestler, nevertheless the world champion. Now, I'm not a great Hogan fan either, but here's the thing. Hogan is the world champ. Therefore, no matter what you think of him, he is supposed to be the top bill in the Federation. Let's face it, Hogan is as over as is over as a heel, plain and simple, whether he defends the belt or not. To have Goldberg win cleanly would be crazy. All credibility of Hogan would be lost. So in this one match with Goldberg, the argument here from Mr. Durr is that if Hogan were to lose, all of his credibility over how many years had he been wrestling at this point? 20-year career would be completely shot because of one loss to the most dominant guy to step into WCW, probably in the history of this company. Obviously, I disagree. But he says all credibility of Hogan would be lost, and WCW would become worse than it already is. Now, for all of you people who don't care about Hogan's credibility, let's face facts. Wrestling got a big boost among the marks because of Hogan. So as we do approach the final few years of Hogan's career, the final few years of Hogan's career here in 1998, he does need to have some dignity going out. Well, we gotta make sure that Hogan can keep his dignity. Wouldn't want Hulk Hogan to lose his dignity. Now, obviously, Goldberg cannot lose yet. That would destroy his credibility as well. But remember, this is a title match, so the only viable option right now would be Goldberg by DQ or a countout. That's the most sane proposition. It keeps Hogan as the champion while keeping the heel face. Oh, I'm afraid of Goldberg. What? Side note, I'm not remotely afraid of Goldberg. I still have the open challenge, but that's another thing. And Goldberg is still undefeated in that scenario, still over, and still the US champion. P.S. Ric Flair should have never done the job to the Giant either, because I think the Giant is trash too. The only big guy above 6'8", 300 pounds, worth a damn, is Kevin Nash and Vader. Anyhow, Goldberg over Hogan via DQ, end of story. All of you who think Goldberg should be world champion should go jump in a lake, and while you are there, take Goldberg with you. I somehow feel dumber for having read this post. I felt my IQ dropping as I was reading this. So there you go. I mean, you hear that. We're here from Mr. Durr. All you people who disagree, you can go jump in a lake. So says Michael David Durr, who, from what I can gather, has some sort of open challenge that he extended to Bill Goldberg. Now, I have no idea the nature of this open challenge. I have no idea if is it to a wrestling match? Is it to a football game? I don't know. Is it a hot dog eating contest? He didn't say. In his signature, though, he has a link to an Amy Yazbek fan page. There's a blast from the past. And then he has a quote from Jesse James of the New Age Outlaws. Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody. Seeker722 had something to say in response to Mr. Durr. Are you on crack? Kevin Nash is the biggest piece of shit in the business. He's lazy, he's fat, he fakes injuries, he stirs up trouble in the dressing room, he refuses to job. He thinks he's much better on the mic than he actually is. The list is endless. And on top of it all, he can't wrestle. He makes Hogan look like Dean Malenko. Just about the only thing he ever had going for him is that he is friends with Shawn Michaels. By the way, I think Jeff Jarrett is underrated, so that shows how much I know. I love that. I love that. I love that. As far as Hogan Goldberg goes, it should end exactly the way Bischoff will probably book it, with a run-in. Why give away your big money match to beat a taped Raw in the ratings? Are they that desperate? Yes. This should be built up for a couple of months. And if Hogan does lose, I don't think he loses any credibility. He's Hogan. Same goes for Goldberg, although not because he's Goldberg, because if he loses to Hogan, he loses to a guy that everybody else in the industry has laid down for. Besides, he hasn't really been beaten, or has not really beaten anyone yet. Even the dumbest Mark knows that 75 wins over Barry Darsow, 25 over Glacier, and the rest coming at the expense of Rick Fuller doesn't mean anything. It's not like he's the ultimate warrior who was put over by high mid-carders and main eventers. Goldberg has faced 2 guys total with any kind of credibility, and one of them, Steven Regal, made him look like a fool. If either guy walks out with a clean win tonight, I think everyone will know exactly how secure Bischoff feels in his job. And David Pittman says, as much as it pains me to say, I would rather see Hogan win cleanly or at least semi-cleanly. Putting the world title on Goldie would be a major mistake in my opinion. Let Hogan win this one, and let Bret Hart beat Hogan for the title maybe in September. Really, Goldberg can't carry a main event pay-per-view caliber match. Not that Hogan can either. They need to put the strap on somebody who can. So now we move beyond the July 6, 98 Nitro match. So now Bill Goldberg is already the World Heavyweight Champion. We go to July 31st, 1998. Leroy Metcalf Jr. drops. Excuse me. Leroy Metcalf Jr. drops by with a post titled WWF Sucks So Hard. I forgot how much I missed this, I gotta tell you. I forgot how much I enjoyed this. Man alive, that promotion sucks. All their guys cheat to win and couldn't make it in WCW. Goldberg is so awesome. He doesn't even break a sweat out there and is still undefeated. Steve Austin was so boring in WCW and left because it was too hard. I'm glad he's gone. Anyone care to comment? Alicia Snow cared to comment. Alicia Snow says, yeah, I'm going to comment. You're a clueless idiot. How's that for a comment? Rich Rogers says, post something halfway intelligent that doesn't make you sound like a brain-damaged mark, and maybe someone will comment. Paul Marriott says, the reason why Steve Austin left WCW is because he was fired. Reason? Because Eric Bischoff is a dumb fuck that has no taste for good entertainment. The WWF actually makes the wrestlers, and WCW just steals them. The WWF can take some of the WCW wrestlers, but they can also be changed, like Austin, Mero, and Mick Foley, for instance. And Web TV Uncle says, yeah, I got a comment for you. You are a complete idiot. Don't you realize that wrestling is fake? WCW makes everyone lose to Goldberg. And about Goldberg's streak, big fucking deal. Andre the Giant was undefeated for several years. Come back and talk to me in 2002. He's telling him to come back and talk to him in 2002, and here I am sitting here 20 years after 2002. So then came Starrcade. Now we move to the end of the year. And Bill Goldberg's first loss to Kevin Nash. A lot of people complaining about the pay-per-view overall and the finish to the main event. Wu Nine Tang had a message for all those people with a post on December 28th, 1998, titled, Quit Bitching About Starrcade. Okay, first of all, he says, I didn't actually see most of the pay-per-view. I saw the final match, so I love it. This is perfect IWC. He's telling people to quit bitching about Starrcade, and in the very next sentence, he admits that he did not see anything on the show outside of the main event. He says, the only match that was dumb was the Bischoff-Flair match. I agree that Flair should have squashed him, but oh well. Maybe they'll go somewhere with this. Seriously, where would they go afterwards if Flair just beat the hell out of Bischoff? Sure, that may be what the fans want to see, but what does that leave you with? I hear people bitching about Jericho and Conan. Yes, Conan really sucks. The problem is Jericho hasn't re-signed yet, and Eric is jobbing people out until they re-sign, even though it may suck. It is good business. Eric cannot afford to build somebody up only to lose them to Vince. This is Jericho's fault. If he wants to win and get a push, he should re-sign. If he wants to go to the WWF, then he should expect to be jobbed out. Giant and DDP, I heard this was booked pretty well. Besides, Giant is most likely gone anyways. And finally, Nash versus Goldberg. I actually watched this match, and it was fucking great. Says Nash put out effort like I've never seen out of him. Same with Goldberg. How can you guys bitch about this match? It had amazing heat. Both guys put on a great show for 15 minutes. The ending was a screw job, but this was booked very well. New champion, Goldberg's first loss, and he doesn't lose any credibility. How can you losers complain about Goldberg being champion, and then as soon as he loses, you bitch even more? There is no pleasing the lemmings. You bitched when Hogan held the strap, and then you bitched even more when he lost it to Goldberg. Fucking lemmings, quit bitching. Well, V Gangrel 4 responds, that's the difference between you and I. You are a WCW and Hogan lemming. You accept Hogan's low-impact aerobic show as great wrestling. I expect more from mine. A 9-minute match with nothing but a few stomps, kicks, and a couple of power moves does not impress me. You are deprived, easily impressed, and you have no knowledge of what a great match is. You only know what Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan tell you is great. Chris Hugh posted a thread of his own that very same day, December 28th, 1998, titled, "The Wrestling Wars Are Over. Starrcade proved it." The WWF wins hands down. If you could watch that piece of shit pay-per-view the WCW put on and tell me that they are putting anywhere near the level of product on the table as the WWF, then you are a liar. Vince must be popping the champagne. Then we have Ron. Ron, apparently gazing into his crystal ball, responded, I agree, but there was never any doubt even before Starrcade that the WWF is a superior, slicker product. I hope the WCW makes improvements, as I don't want McMahon to dominate this market. Without the WCW to compete against, the WWF could easily go flat and boring. Rick Lowe says, you're right, the WWF product is much more entertaining these days. They are enjoying the cycle turning their way. It will turn back again. To imply that the WCW is dead just because they are lagging behind shows, a level of ignorance is a level of ignorance I'm sure you did not intend. The war is not over. WCW is financially strong and in no jeopardy of folding. McMahon may unfortunately be enjoying more success than he personally deserves, but that does not mean he will continue to enjoy it forever and always. And Crass says, but of course the idiots like you and others like you will buy the next pay-per-view and complain and bitch in this news group, knowing damn well that no pay-per-view is worth $30, especially WCW's. But then again, not all of you are that honest. Some of you actually steal cable. Well, if you would rather get drilled by a dentist than watch a WCW pay-per-view, guess what? Don't watch it anymore. It'll save 3 hours of your life. In the meantime, while waiting for the next WWF pay-per-view, you could jerk off to the Playboy channel. I mean, it's almost the same thing. And finally, we skip ahead all the way to 2002. February 16th, 2002 to be exact, and a post from Danny Cokers titled, and I swear this is the post. I'm going to put it up for you here in a second. This is from Danny. An open discussion. Bill Goldberg is a better wrestler than Chris Benoit. I'm sure this will be civil. So let's see what Danny has to say. It says, hi, my name is Danny Cokers. I've often been called a controversial man who has his own opinions and shares them whether it pleases the ears of his fellow man or not. Therefore, I have decided to host a discussion of wrestling. I have been watching wrestling for 30 years since the UWF and Buck Zumhofe. So I know my stuff. Yeah, he knows his stuff so much the UWF did not exist 30 years ago when he made this post. But he has this, as you can see here, he has this broken down by category. Marks. The goal of the wrestler is to draw marks to respond to or otherwise support his gimmick with reactions and or money. Bill Goldberg is responsible for some of Nitro's highest ratings and was at the head of the promotion during its peak. Therefore, the marks clearly buy Goldberg. On the other hand, Chris Benoit has never drawn a dime in his life. He fails to rise above the mid-card because of a lack of a substantial reaction from the marks. Therefore, the advantage goes to Goldberg in this category. Then we have the category of wrestling. Goldberg's offense stretches from bone-crushing suplexes and slams to jaw-cracking strikes to limb-breaking holds and such. Plus, he can do a backflip. Chris Benoit only has a mediocre vertical suplex. He isn't really strong enough to lift the opponent all the way up for a suplex. A headbutt, in which he falls off the turnbuckle. And a crossface, where he sits on their arm and yanks on their chin. Clearly, Chris Benoit's offensive attack is not impressive. Advantage, Goldberg. I have presented plenty of evidence in this post. It is now your job to counteract it. Magpie asks the obvious question, you on drugs? And Tim Crowley says, fucking good-ass drugs. And we've got Bean Fried Pork chimes in. Goldberg was given the biggest push in wrestling history to get as popular as he was. If Goldberg had been pushed like Benoit was, he would not be as popular as Benoit is today. However, I will give you that the reverse is also true, and that it is unlikely that Benoit would or could ever be as popular as Goldberg at his heyday, so I will give the slight advantage to Goldberg in the marks category. But Benoit is many times the wrestler that Goldberg is. Chris Benoit has a tremendous arsenal of technical moves, among the largest arsenals in the world. He may not always display this in the simple-minded WWF, but his moveset is tremendous and he can wrestle much better than Goldberg. His amateur-style match with Kurt Angle at No Way Out is far beyond Goldberg's capabilities, for instance. He also manages to put a tremendous amount of energy into every move that he does, so much so that when knocked on his back, he will jerk so spastically that he sometimes bounces back on his feet in one motion. Has that happened? I don't think I've ever seen that before. It sounds like he's convulsing. I must have missed that. Benoit also sells 100 times better than Goldberg. Benoit has a much better grasp of psychology in wrestling as well. And another factor, mic skills. Goldberg has very limited mic skills. He very rarely will cut an interview longer than 10 seconds. Benoit, however, has developed his mic skills and is now pretty decent on the mic. He also has shown success as both a heel and a face. And though Benoit will never be the babyface that Goldberg is, Goldberg sucks as a heel. And the one time he was asked to be a heel, and admittedly this was an ill-advised booking move, he acted very unprofessional about it. Benoit, on the other hand, has much more discipline and is a thorough professional with complete respect and love for the business. JC Yo agrees with Mr. Coker. He says, agreed. Goldberg's moves look a lot more realistic also. Goldberg's offense looks completely dominating. Just compare Goldberg's spear to Edge's spear. Edge's spear looks like he's going to knock over the average man, while Goldberg's spear looks like he's going to kill somebody. Goldberg just looks like a monster who looks more intense in the ring, or who looks more intense in the ring than Goldberg? Nobody. Benoit is a great wrestler, but does the average fan know that? No. Says the flying headbutt is cool, but the crossface crippler is okay. Benoit has some nice chops that create a loud slap noise, but other than that, he's just a taller Dean Malenko. Stephen Morlock says, this was a very good troll. You've worked many, many people into arguing with you. Kudos. And there were. If it in fact was a troll. You know, with some of these people, I'm not so sure. But there were probably over 20 replies. I'm not going to read all of them, but there were probably a good 20 replies to this thread. So he definitely got a pretty decent-sized discussion going. But I think at the end of the day, Brandon R. sums up this discussion and this episode pretty well with a one-line response. Shut the fuck up, you stupid motherfucker. I love how further down, if you look further down the post, you see that from the original post, from Mr. Coker's original post there, one of the rules was no flaming. This is a civil discussion. Not on RSPW, it's not. If you come to RSPW for that, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Well, that's all I got. We gave you a good hour here. If you want to see more of these, hit the like button on this video and become a channel member for early access to future videos just like this one and other exclusive content. And so until next time, and I know it's been far too long, but hopefully we will be doing more of these. So until then, I am the Solomonster, and I will see you guys back here for more RSPW very soon.